For the past 7 seasons, I've raced from Azerbaijan all the way to Croatia, and today our journey ends. We'll be playing at least 3 seasons today, winning our final 2 titles and also allowing Neil Warnock to retire in the Premier League. This was the ultimate Journeyman save, and today it's coming to an end. After our last season in Croatia, we beat both teams on the west coast. We also won the title, which means we're free to move to Italy or Austria this season. Within the 250km range of Istra 1961, we can find Sassuolo, Fiorentina, Venezia and Udinese, and all of these are options for Neil Warnock's next move. The first question we need to answer today is which Italian team we're heading to for our first leg. We left the Croatia episode not sure where Warnock would prefer to go, but he's actually picked the most northern team of the 4, and we're going to be heading to Udinese. Udinese are well known for a few different reasons. Their former player Antonio Di Natale was one of the latest bloomers of all time, with only Messi and Ronaldo scoring more goals after turning 30 years old. The club have also won Serie C 3 times, Serie B 3 times, but never Serie A. If we want to move to either France or Switzerland, that is going to have to change. The club's owner recommends going back to their last successful strategy. That's something Warnock agreed with too. We'll have a month before the transfer window opens, so our scouts are sent to Chile, Brazil, Argentina and Colombia. To celebrate Neil Warnock's 82nd birthday, the staff are still singing Buon Compleanno as the first few signings walk through the door. First up is a defensive left winger, followed by a hard-working right winger. These 2 guys could be crucial because we're moving to a 3-5-2, the same formation Udinese used when they were Serie A runners-up all the way back in 1955. In the space of 3 months, we'd transformed the team from this to this, which was almost unrecognisable. Sure, a big part of good players wanting to join the club was the massive budget we'd been given, but the reputation Neil Warnock has for winning titles has had just as much of an impact. We were about to find out how good this team was because we were opening the season with games against Internazionale and AC Milan. I think the best way to describe this team was a very fluid side because we had a lot of good dribblers, but almost no sturdy strength in defence. This meant we could score a lot of goals very easily, but it also found it quite hard to keep the goals out of our own net. Sure enough, this would turn out to be our downfall in the first season, because we ended our first Italian season in 3rd place. We strengthened again for season 2, and in the 8th season of this journey, we focused on bringing in the most physical set 3 centre-backs we could find. Neil Warnock would be proud of these 3 because some of their physical stats were almost unbelievable. Just like our season with Sabal in Azerbaijan, Crete in Greece and also Osijek in Croatia, the second season came down to a single match against the biggest force in Italian football, which was now actually Sassuolo. I'm not too sure how they ended up being so good now, but we denied their 93 rated attacking midfielder and 93 rated striker from creating anything, and we would go on to win 1-0. There were a few more games, but our team was just way too fast, strong, tall and still creative for anyone to actually get in our way. We confirmed we could leave Italy by winning the title, and as so many clubs were close to the French border, we could go to basically any club in the south of France that we wanted. But I think it was pretty obvious that there was an easy choice to make. With only 1 more title win needed, we were heading west from Udine to the most exclusive and probably least Neil Warnock city possible, Monaco. Our manager from Sheffield was given a deluxe flat overlooking the harbour, and in return, we would have to deliver 1 last title. If we wanted to head to England though, we'd have to beat one of these few teams that are on the north coast of France, and for the first time, we'd actually be joining the best team in the league. This is a big reason why we're cramming 3 different nations into a single video, because this Monaco team is so ridiculous that we can barely talk about it. We won Serie A with a team that was so much worse than this, and this team was clear of even the likes of PSG, and I have no words to say how bizarre it was for Warnock to be the one greeting the pre-arranged transfer of Kylian Mbappe that was heading back to Monaco. Our budget was almost impossible to spend, but we tried our best. Warnock must have felt more like Captain Sheffield than the manager of a football club, because he was assembling the Monaco Avengers. With a team this good, we went unbeaten in August. We continued this into September, we crushed PSG in October, and had basically won the league by Christmas. I realise I haven't actually included too much footage of our game, so I thought I'd include this full match here against PSG that happened in January. If we can win this one, we've basically already won the league because we're 19 points ahead of them and they've got no real chance of catching up. The PSG team is still quite good. Xavi Simons and Gavi are both playing for PSG and they're both pretty highly rated. But we've got Anthony Gordon and he can do stuff like that. It was actually so surprising how good Gordon was for us. In many ways, he was actually the superstar of this team. He was ahead of people like Gabri Veiga. He was better than Kolo Muani. He was almost better than Mbappe. But despite Mbappe now being 33 years old, he still had the pace to get around Kimpembe. And what a finish that is to make it 2-0 within the first 20 minutes. To say PSG are our only real competition in this league, this just showed how dominant Monaco really were. Mbappe was playmaking, he was getting forwards, he was getting in behind, and the only way we were really ever conceding goals was from mistakes, like this one from Loic Bardet. You can see how annoyed Neil Warnock was, and he was even more annoyed when Xavi Simons put us at serious risk of losing the match. But we were still absolutely dominant on the attack. Mbappe had a one-on-one. He tried to go around Donnarumma, but couldn't quite do it. This time Gordon would have a one-on-one, and it was a brilliant save from Donnarumma. Gabri Veiga's passing was absolutely amazing, but Mbappe couldn't quite time his runs on a couple of occasions. Otherwise, this could easily have been 3-1. In fact, we made some substitutions, including bringing on Nelson Viper. Gordon would see Viper's run only a few minutes later, and yet again, Kimpembe would be done for pace. We were going to score this one, we would get 3-0 and the 3 points. The win over PSG in January saw us grow our lead to 21 points, which even for the French league was total domination. With one eye on the future, we had to make sure we could still beat one of the teams from Normandy away from home, and we would actually beat both of them, with both Lens and Le Havre falling under Neil Warnock's iron fist. With Mbappe's return to Monaco going even better than even he could have imagined, Warnock also did something that was never part of this challenge and qualified for the Champions League final. It really didn't matter if we'd win, but of course, this would be the ultimate feather in the cap of a legendary career. It's hard to imagine Monaco having the best team in the world, but even compared to the likes of Manchester City and Real Madrid, we were favourites for basically every game in this run. The Champions League final was no different. We won, Mbappe as captain lifted his first Champions League, and Neil Warnock was officially the best manager in the world while also turning 85 years old. Following in William the Conqueror's footsteps, Champions League winner and Neil Warnock was heading back to England via Normandy. For the first time, his choice of teams was actually pretty varied. With Monaco beating Le Havre, we had the choice of some of London's finest clubs. Also, some of the clubs on the south coast would fit into this challenge. Would we be trying to go invincible with Arsenal? Would it be last year's Europa League champions Chelsea, or one of the underdogs from London like Fulham, QPR or West Ham? Well, for Neil Warnock, there was only one real choice. Millwall have been promoted to the Premier League, they finally moved into the new Bermondsey Stadium, and they've got £150 million to spend on a brand new team. There's still a bit of a deep-held reputation of their inherent dirtiness at Millwall, but Neil Warnock is not having any of it. Just like how he rebuilt Cardiff to be a footballing side 15 years ago, this Millwall team is going to be his final great squad. Sure, this team wasn't quite as good as our Monaco team, but no Millwall fan will be complaining at the talent in our squad. With no teams really needing to get beat in our final season, we were staying in the Premier League and retiring no matter what happened. The only games we actually really need to highlight are the big derby days against West Ham. Neil Warnock has managed in Wales, he's managed in Turkey, Greece and Serbia, but this derby is right up for those with any of those fan bases. With all the hype for this match, it was quite ironic that the most interesting part of the first half happened within the first 13 minutes, Antony's offside goal being the only real chance that happened in that entire half. Tammy Abraham would get a decent chance that you would have expected someone younger than 35 to have scored, but unfortunately Tammy Abraham is now quite an old striker. Parrott would also hit the crossbar, a 30-year-old striker, and he's been absolutely unreal for us for most of this season. But he couldn't help us score against West Ham, and the game actually ended 0-0. Pretty ironic for all the hype the match had, but it actually turned out to be one of the most boring matches of our entire season. It was pretty obvious that Premier League football was harder than any other league we'd played in, but seeing our Millwall team perform as it did was also really satisfying. Both Millwall and West Ham would go on to finish mid-table, which isn't too bad of a result for a team that was built over the course of 3 weeks back in August. There was definitely more to come from this team, but the challenge was officially over. We started in Azerbaijan, we won the league in Turkey, Greece, Serbia, Croatia, Italy and France, and we finally played one last season in England. On the 1st of July 2035, Neil Warnock officially retired. and we're ending the longest career mode save that I have ever posted on this channel. I really hope you enjoyed watching this series. I'll always remember players like Kutsayas, Ozobic, Kaznevich, Simi, Mbappe, and a lot of these players from the Millwall team, and hopefully you'll also consider subscribing so you can catch any series that I make over the next couple of months. But really, thank you for watching. If you watched any minutes of this series, even if this was the only episode you've watched, thank you so much. I'll see you soon. Thank you for everything. Cheers and goodbye.